Maybe you can tell us basically what happened during the first two regimes that we had, that is the Kenyatta and the Nyayo regime.
This first independent government did not address the problem, the land problem that had accumulated from the colonial state era. Now, remember, of course, the Kenyatta government came and went.
Yes.
Now, it did not address the flaw or the gap in the constitution in regard to land. Neither did it enact a land policy. It started massive land settlement schemes in Central, in Rift Valley, in Coast. But again, if you read the history of those settlement schemes, you'll see a lot of challenges with the way land was allocated. You know, there was a lot of iniquity in unfair distribution. But in came the second government after Kanu came in. I mean, Kanu was in power for all that period, but the faces were kept changing. We had the Kenyatta government, then the Moi government. And one thing that happened during the Moi government era was that I don't know how it all started, but people began to relate with land even much more dramatically than there before. There was something I literally call an insatiable greed for the allocation of public land, if you had executive power or political power. And people made a dash for public land, be it road reserves, be it forest reserves. We issued titles to even game reserves. Here in the city, houses that belong to local authorities and government were allocated. I mean, it was dramatic. All it mattered is, you know, somebody in government, either a PS or minister, or you know an influential politician, and you get some planner to identify some piece of land which looks like vacant, and go and get some allocation in your name. Or rather, normally get some political blessing to get an allocation in your name. And oh dear, that's how we give out Karura Forest, you know, large parts of Karura Forest. Today, as we speak, almost half of Karura Forest still looks like there are private landowners to it, much as the trees stand as you see them. Gong Forest has the same problem. Remember, we had big challenges with the Gong Forest. In fact, the forest just near Jamhuri Park was one of the prime targets. And you see how good that green is for the city. Of course, you go to the Rift Valley, the Mau, the Aberdare, and parts of Mount Kenya Forest. So it was a crazy, crazy dash for public land. Now, that seemed to add to the injuries that we had before. What you'd call an equal distribution of land had been a problem. People were complaining about the fact that the laws that were in the country were complicated. They couldn't understand how people relate with the land and institutions. Now, and many other problems. If you really look at the land question in Kenya, you'll see we are also talking about urbanization, which had not been well managed. So we are beginning to get a lot of informal settlements. People are not respecting, were not conserving our environment as they handle their land. A lot of fragmentation of land had been happening, a lot of environmental degradation. So you add to that this new craze for the allocation of public land and the land question from the colonial state to the first independent government, then the second, and it's like it went to a no-time high. And Kenyans began to push for reforms in this country. That basically is, by the way, how we got to the whole business of land reforms in Kenya, because in an attempt to respond to the problems, the questions that had been building up since 1895 to the second independent government, I think the only way out for the country was, let's revisit these issues and ask ourselves, what do we need to do as a country to heal some of these problems? And that's how we ended up with a national land policy, which was approved in the year 2009. Thereafter, quickly followed by a new constitution with a very strong chapter on land and environment, all in an attempt to respond to the questions that had been accumulating on the land issue in Kenya. Of course, I know in our subsequent discussions, we talk about some of the challenges that we experienced during elections. Yeah.